Good morning, everyone. Today we're gonna explore the architecture of resilience. Specifically, I wanna walk you through Vietnam's strategic emergence in the global semiconductor value chain. As business students, it's crucial we understand how global trade is literally rewriting itself, and Vietnam is currently at the very center of the massive transformation. The first one, let's move to the first slide. The era of hyper concentration is ending. For decades, the global economy operated on single node supply chains because they maximized efficiency and minimized cost. However, the era of hyper concentration is ending, relying on a single point of failure. Like there is no longer a viable corporate strategy. Resilience now strictly requires parallel risk-adjusted capacity, and now we're seeing this driven by three main factors. The first one is geopolitical friction. Like you can imagine like the U.S. and China technological decoupling. Or the second one is the structural shifts, such as aging demographics and rising labor costs in legacy hubs. And the last one is severe supply shocks exposed by the recent pandemic and logistics crisis. Okay, so let's move to the third slide. Is all about the China plus one structural imperative. This brings us to the China's plus one structural imperative. This concept has evolved from a simple defensive hedge into an absolute strategic necessity. Global tech firms are not completely leaving China. They are retaining access to its deep ecosystems while actively building secondary, independent manufacturing pillars to balance their risk. And so we're witnessing a massive paradigm shift, like we are moving away from pure cost arbitrage and maximum consolidation, and moving toward risk mitigation, geographic distribution, and ultimate supply chain sovereignty. And here is the images we're showing here is the China's plus one strategy. Like China is moving toward the Asian. The next slide is about the strategic intersection in Vietnam. So I think there's like a secondary pillar is being built. Vietnam captures disproportionate benefits from this pivot, already ranking as the third largest semiconductor exporter to the US among Asian nations. But I think this isn't an accident. It's built on the strategic proximity with key ports like Haiphong, located just 37 miles from Shenzhen's tech hubs. It is fueled by economic momentum, projecting a like $7.2 billion domestic semiconductor market in 2031. Furthermore, Vietnam has an incredible trade architecture with over 50 major free trade agreements, combined with a geopolitical neutrality that allows comprehensive strategic partnerships with the US, China, and South Korea simultaneously. Okay, so let's move to the next part. It's all about the pillar. So here we have the pillar one, the US-Vietnamese strategic. As you can see in the picture, here's the strategic partnership between Vietnam and the US. It has four sessions. That you can see in the image. So let's break down the pillars of this growth. Pillar 1 is the US-Vietnam strategic bridge. This bridge is upgraded in September 2023. So Vietnam is now one of only 8 critical global partners under the US CHIPS ITSI fund. Well, like US is give Vietnam a $500 million fund. is specifically designed for capability building. It targets 4 areas: diversifying upstream critical minerals like tungsten, expanding downstream assembly, testing, and packaging, or ATP for short, refining policy alignment, and funding workforce development, which includes a $30.8 million grant via Arizona State University to build local engineering talent. Let's move toward to the Pillar 2, the law on digital technology industry. Well, in this pillar, it focuses on domestic policy, specifically the law on digital and technology industry. We can think of this as the operating system for foreign direct investment, going into effect on January 1st, 2020 and 2026. It is the world's first standalone legislation of its kind, treating semiconductors as supreme national priorities. It actively removes bureaucratic friction by establishing a one-stop national investment service portal for a high-tech capital. Crucially, it lowers the capital threshold for special incentives, specifically for a semiconductor R&D, down to 6 trillion VND, which is roughly $240 million US. And here's the image predicting and capturing the law on the digital technology industry in 2025. Let's move to the next slide. So here's the table. Here's the table of the unmatched fiscal advantage, the incentive matrix. Well, as you can see in here, standard priority sectors and the semiconductor R&D with lower than 6 trillion Vietnamese VND. Because of this new law, Vietnam offers an unmatched fiscal advantage. We can look at the incentive matrix for semiconductor R&D projects for over that 6 trillion Vietnamese threshold. The benefits are staggering. Companies get a fixed 5% corporate tax rate for 37 years. They can receive a tax holiday of 0% for the first 6 years, followed by a 50% reduction for the next 13 years. So we can see there's a full exemption for land and water rent for the project's duration. We can have a 5-year personal income tax exemption for highly qualified personnel, and 5-year visa and work permit exemption for skilled foreign workers. And we're gonna talk about the Pillar 3, and Alina will talk about it right now.
And the next slide is about Pillar 3, exploring foreign direct investment. These incentives lead directly into Pillar 3, entering foreign direct investment. Global multinationals are actively voting with their capital. Right now, there is 11.6 billion in total registered FDI in this sector across more than 170 active foreign invested projects. Vietnam is establishing itself as primary hub for assembly, testing, and packaging. This creates a gravitational pull success in ATP build a foundational ecosystem that naturally pull in specialized suppliers, advanced material, and high-tech equipment manufacturers. And the next slide is the global joint ecosystem. To understand the scale of this gravitation pull, just look at the global joint ecosystem currently operating in Vietnam. Core has a massive $1.6 billion investment in an advanced packaging and testing plant in Bắc Ninh, and NVIDIA and FPT have a joint $200 million initial investment to build an AI chip factory. Samsung is scaling advanced packaging, driving over $60 billion in annual electronics exports. Marvell has elevated Vietnam to its third largest global R&D hub, employing over 500 engineers, and Intel operates its largest global ATP facility right in Ho Chi Minh City, generating over $4 billion in annual exports. And next slide is about the upstream purpose, refilling the middle income trap. However, a critical part of Vietnam's strategy is refusing the middle income traps. They do not want to just be a downstream assembly hub forever. Step 1 was downstream dominance in ATP, where they are already a global scale powerhouse. Step 2 is moving into upstream IC design, and they are rapidly expanding with over 58 design companies and 700 active chip design engineers currently operating. Finally, step 3 is technological sovereignty through fabrication, where they are breaking ground on trial for the rights to master front-end manufacturing. And next, slide 11, the rise of domestic champions. This upstream purpose is driven by the rise of domestic champions. The Make in Vietnam initiative legally mandates indigenous capability alongside FDI integration. For example, Viettel is breaking ground on Vietnam's first domestic semiconductor fab at the Hoa Lạc High Tech Park, targeting 32 nanometer chip production by 2027. Meanwhile, FPT has established the first domestically owned advanced testing and packaging plant, is already exporting commercial chips to Japan. The ultimate goal here is a global national ecosystem capable of seamless joint ventures with the global partner. Next, Pillar 4, the human capital imperative. But there is a challenge. We bring us to Pillar 4, the human capital imperative. You can have billion in FDI capital and infrastructure, but the ultimate bottleneck in the global chip world is not access to silicon. It's the access to highly specialized engineering brains. To fulfill absorb the $11.6 billion plus in FDI, Vietnam is cutting a hard transition from a labor-intensive manufacturing workforce to a knowledge-intensive energetic powerhouse. The state has acknowledged a current shortage of senior chip architects, and that realization is a catalyst for immediate, massive educational reform. And next is straight 10, 11, developing 50,000 engineers. That reform is called strategy 10 in 18.
Okay, so let's move on to the strategy 1018. That could be developing 50,000 engineers. That reform is called Strategy 1018, a fully funded state mandate to produce 50,000 specialized semiconductor professionals by 2030. This target includes 15,000 IC design architects and R&D specialists, alongside 35,000 HCP process and manufacturing engineers. The execution engine for this massive undertaking involves coordination between the Vietnam National Multi-Project Warfare Coordination Center, foreign partners like Arizona State University, and domestic corporate dual training programs through FPT. And you can see, as in the image, here's the code in the Vietnam strategic orientation. To synthesize everything we've discussed, Vietnam has built a cohesive innovation ecosystem. The inputs are the capital and geostrategy, over 11.6 billion in tech giant FDI plus, the US ATSI strategic integration. The catalyst is an unprecedented policy like the 37-year tax incentives and frictionless infrastructure via the 2026 law on digital tech. The engine is the execution by domestic champions, creating closed-loop capabilities, and the foundation of it all its human capital. The goal of 50,000 highly trained engineers by 2030. Together, this creates a resilient, highly advanced node in the global supply chain. So, in conclusion, securing the next decade of tech resilience is already underway. Vietnam has decisively moved past the orientation phase by aligning state-sponsored policy, immense foreign capital, U.S. strategic partnerships, and aggressive human capital development. Vietnam is engineering the ultimate safeguard against supply chain fragility. The China Plus One architecture is being built right now, and Vietnam it is definitive foundation. And thank you for your time.